Hello, everybody, and welcome to my Ascension Messages. My name is Bobbie Richardson. Today, we are going to discuss a channeling that just came through me. There is a clue to our expansion and the understanding that all colors brought together in the material world become black, and all colors brought together through energy or light become white. And I wrote it down, but I didn't quite understand everything. I had this feeling of where it was going. And they brought up two stories of my own to give me some sort of bearing or understanding. And then I channeled this big channeling through about that. So in other words, if you draw with crayon all the colors, red, blue, yellow, and you mix them all together, they will just become black. But if you shine a light of red and blue and yellow together, it will become white. So that's what they're talking about there. I knew that. I understood that much. And then they started to bring up the story where it was a long time ago, 2000, early 2000s sometime, when I was, because I could see into other frequencies and see into other dimensions. I woke up at a friend's place who had, she put me in the basement room, and there was this energy that came out of one of her ornaments, and it ended up manifesting in front of my face as this being, and it was very reptilian, kind of not looking, but very reptilian energy, a very graspy, nasty energy. Actually had this duffel coat, and it was just kind of shuffling towards me. And I sat up in bed. I wasn't afraid. Well, I was a bit afraid, but I mean, I wasn't afraid enough that I didn't sit up and stand up for myself, sort of thing. But I sat up in bed and went, stop, don't go any further, any closer to me. And this being, it's kind of like one of those nightmares that you see, those horror stories that you see right on TV. It came closer to me and closer to me until it got on my bed, and then it ended up having its arm wrapped around me, and it ended up trying to press these two pills in my mouth. I immediately knew I was going to get out of it. I didn't know how, but it's almost like there was some sort of feeling within me that I was going to be fine, and I really trusted that. And to trust that means that something has to happen then in my reality for me to shift out of it. And what happened was all of my chakras, all of my energies, all the colors, all the colors of the chakras all came together to one ball of light. And it was a white light that flung out of my chest, and then it just exploded, and then the being was gone because I lifted my vibration out of the story, out of that story. So they gave me that as one of the clues to this next channeling. And the other clue was when I had a vision quest, and within my mind became my outer reality. And so I was in a tent in this vision quest for real, and then I must have fallen asleep, and these horses came galloping both sides of the tent towards each other in a war. And that was my two hemispheres warring against each other, logic against intuition, intuition against logic, not trusting each other. And I tried to crawl out of the tent to try to find a space of safe haven. And I saw a cave, and I know that the cave represents the pineal gland. So I wanted to take haven in the pineal gland. But within humanity's consciousness, the rule is specifically with everybody, well, apart from those that hold the codes, which I do, there was an elder in front of the cave door, and she would not let me in. And when I entered the cave, she just took her arrow without even thinking and went to fire it at me. But when she fired it, another elder, her friend, ran in front and took the blow. And this gatekeeper of my pineal gland went, what? How can that be? You know, so she grabs my hand, and no matter what she did, she could see the stories rolling through, trying to find a story that meant that I couldn't come through. So she was trying to find a story to be able to stop me from entering the pineal gland from a warring zone. And that was the absolute. You were not allowed to go into the pineal gland from a warring zone. So she ended up finding out that no matter what she did, I was still going to be able to go through. So she was quite upset, and she just goes, go into the other dimensions. And I entered into this, out of that cave. I kind of went up these back stairs, and then ended up in this beautiful reality where it's very just field and this river running in front of me. And then there was a little bridge that went over the river. And when I went onto the bridge, a little blonde-haired boy came up to me. And I do believe he's representing the child within myself, innocence of me, or a Pleiadian boy. Anyway, he was there as a guide, and he wanted to show me something. And I do remember when I was like 2 years old, I channeled through this message saying that we can shift our reality with our thoughts, but I didn't know how to do it. And so I was on this bridge with this little boy, and he puts out his hand when the water's running under the bridge, and he puts out his hand and he stills the water. And I'm like, wow, you can still the water? And he goes, that's nothing, watch this. And these two massive fish come floating on by, because they were both dead. The first one was dead. The second one that was coming up from, coming down the river was completely decaying, like holes, and, and he goes, watch this. And through his intention, he ended up, as the fish went under the bridge, he could turn it back into life. And then the second one, I saw it growing all these weeds out of it, and then it morphed into something else, but it changed, and the story became something else on the other side. So these fish are representing the stories within our minds, and the ability that we have through stillness of our mind to our stillness of the river flowing, or the story flowing, that we can actually change these stories that are coming, or these thoughts that are coming. So they gave me those two stories that I had to think of before I could understand what was going to come through next in this channeling. So they said, I'll read that first bit first. There is a clue to our expansion in the understanding that all colors brought together in the material world become black, and all colors brought together through energy or light become white. This has to do with our chakras being in balance through peace of oneself. And that's the only reason why I could it's the only reason why I could bring all of those chakra balls or chakra energies together and explode it into one to save me, into one light, which was a white light to save me, is because there was something that came over me of calmness. And I knew that at that moment that I was being attacked, I was going to be okay. I just didn't know, my logical brain didn't know how it was going to get through. It didn't have a story to go with it. It just let go enough for this to actually happen, and me find peace within myself, that everything was going to be okay. And just in having peace within myself, I literally brought these colors together to shine this white light. So just remember that as we go through this channeling. So, yeah, this has to do with, I'm going to reread that bit. This has to do with our chakras being in balance through peace of oneself, which explodes a white light, raising one out of a denser version of reality. as within this denser version of reality, all is in resistance to one another, which is meant to be because it creates a separated world, but also it can create a fear-based reality within the person who has been programmed to only feel all resistance as their universe being against them. It's not until humanity lets go of the fear that all is against them and sees their reality in a different light, as a separated world of resistance created to allow our souls to even occupy this body and go on this journey of living as separated people. Because even within every cell in your body has some sort of resistance so that the cell exists and doesn't merge with all other cells. Therefore, everything in this material world has to have some sort of resistance to become a physical identity. But it's only when this resistance of the material world is overshadowed by the mind, that the mind, which is energy, creates the illusion outside oneself that all in separation should be feared, and therefore the reality or experience the soul goes on is a fear-based one. But if we consciously remember that through energy we are light, which is only a physical world with less resistance, it gives an expanded opportunity due to the ability to merge and shift reality faster. Then through peace of oneself, all exists as this light or energy. Then we can learn to raise our vibration through this peaceful self or self-acceptance, altering our thoughts to ground a new experience, only allowing any resistance needed to install the right boundaries without any fear-based scenario overshadowing the mind. In other words, through absolute acceptance of oneself can one shift their reality. This is why creating peace of one's mind is so important, and why those in charge are trying to create fear-based scenarios over and over to keep you under the illusion that you have no power to shift your story, because under the illusion of fear, we can't shift our story. We are entangled with that denser, thicker energy. So it is really due to us finding peace and acceptance of our life in this now moment, that we can actually find, use it by using our imagination, the ability to shift the story. Just like the boy on the bridge who put his hand out to still the water, he was showing me that when we still our mind, and we don't have these fear-based scenarios that everything's against us, and we accept our reality for what it is in this moment, and then we can say, okay, now I am going to shift my story because I am at peace with who I am in the now. It's when you're in peace with who you are in the now that you are raising your vibration. You are saying, even though I was being attacked, I still had this calm feeling coming over me that when I will be okay. And saying that I will be okay, ended up raising my vibration, ended up bringing all my chakras aligned, ended up creating this ball of white light that ended up shifting me out of that reality, because I'd shifted my frequency into a higher frequency that story didn't exist anymore. And so it fell away. And so we can, as humans, we can shift our story through self-acceptance of this is where we're at and we are going to be okay. And no one has any more power over us than who we are. I really love that. I really wanted to share that when that came through, because I felt the importance of it. I'm actually in the middle of another video at the moment that I'm creating, but I thought I'd flick this one out first. And we'll just keep going with whatever other messages come through so that we can have a fuller and better understanding what they're trying to do at the moment to help you, to help guide you guys. What the CYANIANS are channeling through me at the moment is and the Acrturians were helping with that channeling as well. They're trying to help you, your logical mind, understand. And if it has to go through different stories and scenarios and understandings, then to awaken you, your logical mind to accept it, then it's when your logical mind accepts these stories to be real, to actually find wisdom within the story. And when it does find wisdom within the story, then we can actually use that wisdom to at least try to shift our story through self-acceptance and self-acknowledgement that everything is going to be okay, and we can shift our story out of whatever circumstance you're in. Anyway, I will sign off here. So until next time, bye.